This is a very good question, and first let me share about the challenges that we face. These are the two books that I would highly recommend reading. We don't really follow a curriculum. I used to be very confused and I thought I'm throwing it all away. I have a master's degree and I was making very good money at my jobs. But once I read this book, I was convinced that one time my kiddo told me, "Oh, I hate reading, reading's boring." And I'm like, you know what? Hello everyone, in this video I am answering your questions and I have put timestamps right here, so if there are any topics that interest you, you can jump around. I got lots of them, so let's get right into it. The first one comes from Hazy Afterglow and she wants to know what kind of books and podcasts do I recommend for parents. The best way for me to share the books that I have read and loved is to go to my Audible library, and I can share a little bit of summary of all the books that have made a huge impact in my life. And many of these books were responsible for giving me the confidence that I have in homeschooling my kids. So I recently started reading this book called Make It Stick by Peter C. Brown, and it is the science of successful learning. The reason I am reading this book is because I want to understand the depths of how learning occurs, how our brain works, and translate all of that to when I'm educating my kids. And this way I'll know what is important, what is not. So for example, is memorization important? We memorized a lot of stuff in schools, but didn't really use much. But I also think that there must be like a happy balance. So I'm trying to read this book, understand what are the boundaries we can push when it comes to learning, and what type of jobs require extra memorization versus lots of logic versus strategy, and what are the techniques we can use. So I haven't finished it. I'm on like chapter 3, but I'm truly impressed by the book already. So once I'm done reading this book, I'll make a summary video very soon. The next book is $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan. I love learning more about business and I also want to teach business concepts to my kids. So I genuinely enjoyed this book a lot. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the next one, The Anxious Generation, because it explains to us what social media and excessive comparisons in our social settings are doing to our teenagers, especially the kids that were born in the 2010s have been paying a giant price of helicopter parenting and excessive screen time, with girls being extremely depressed because of all the Instagram highlights and comparisons and them not feeling beautiful enough or worthy enough. Even for teenage boys, the suicide rates in the last decade has unfortunately risen. So any parent, I absolutely highly recommend read this book and save your kids from excessive screens and social media. The next book is Atomic Habits. I'm sure most of you have read it. If not, it's just one of those cult favorite productivity books, and understanding why we have the habits we have, and if they're bad habits, how to break them. If good, how to keep stacking good habits one after the other and improve your life. I genuinely enjoyed this book, so again, highly recommend it. Dopamine Nation, next book that I will recommend, trying to understand how our brain works, what are the reward pathways, and it also gives you some understanding about neuroscience. So love that. Almanac of Naval Ravikant, I'm just starting to read it. I've heard a lot about it. Some things are pretty cool how he's put it. There are other books that I've already read about these concepts, like Die with Zero and 4,000 Weeks. These are the two books that I would highly recommend reading. This has given me just in general so much confidence in life about the decisions I'm making and doing hard things, going outside the lane and swimming in the opposite direction. We only have 4,000 weeks that are given to us in our lives for a 80-year lifespan, and that's why to make the most of it and not to worry about little things is extremely important. And then Die with Zero explains to you what money can really do and why you don't have to save every last penny. You know, when we grow up from childhood to adulthood, we are only told how to save, invest, but then there comes a point where we have amassed enough wealth and it's time to start spending it down. It's also time to slow down your work, which I have done substantially to take this season of my life where my kids are little and they need me the most. So I'm okay putting my career on a break and then picking it back up. We are all living longer and longer, so it's okay to slow down right now and give these extremely important years to your kids because they deserve it. To become healthy individuals, they need your intentional time and lots of it. So Die with Zero gave me a lot of peace about this decision. I used to be very confused and I thought I'm throwing it all away. I have a master's degree and I was making very good money at my jobs. But once I read this book, I was convinced that this is a good decision. We will get more money, but we won't get this time back. And that's why if you guys read only 2 books from this list that I'm recommending, let that be Die with Zero and 4,000 Weeks. If I go through all of these books, it can get really long. So let me just pick maybe a couple of other ones. Brain Rules for Baby was my first lesson about empathy and how it is one of the most important skills you can provide to your kids. So again, highly recommend that. The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart is also one of my favorites. It gave me a lot of confidence with homeschooling, and A Call of the Violin Free. So these are most of the books that I've read so far. There's a long list beyond that where I'll read books about finance, investing, and parenting. My favorite podcasts in the last couple of years have definitely been the Andrew Huberman podcast. I like the scientific information that I get from there and understanding of neuroscience, and some of the guests are amazing. I don't like a lot of the sponsorships that he takes, so just putting it out there, like AG1 and all these scammy things that Andrew Huberman has been promoting, I'm not a big fan, but I love the scientific information. I have deeply enjoyed Matthew Walker's work, his book, Why We Sleep, and lots of podcast episodes about sleep and getting into like the nitty-gritties of sleep. Those are some of my favorite podcasts when it comes to health and neuroscience. And when it comes to finance, I love the Afford Anything podcast by Paula Pant. And let me look at my podcast, the one that I usually listen to. Definitely lots of finance podcasts because that's just one of my other passions. I've been enjoying some of the Diary of the CEO podcast episodes, and I also love Cal Newport's work about deep work and, again, living a distraction-free life, reducing social media in your life. That was a really long answer, but I hope it gave you lots of ideas about what type of content I consume and how it shapes the way I think and present this channel to you. Next question is from Tarun Tamil. They asked me about curriculum that we follow and how we plan our homeschool. And I've said this in my previous videos, we don't really follow a curriculum. And honestly, I've realized the curriculum that we really follow is the questions that our kids ask, and then we go into more depth. I also try to gamify most of the concepts. For example, we were doing fraction dominoes the other day with our kids and they really enjoyed it. We noticed that they still need a little bit extra understanding of fractions. So while they were playing, some of the dominoes they could create, but the rest we need to give them more lessons. And now what I'll do is I'll go to the Montessori world and bring fractions work for them. They can practice that and then play dominoes again. So this is literally a very flowy and intuitive process that we follow. Either we'll bring a game, and if we see them intrigued and they want to play it more and more, we'll go into the depths, or we'll note down any questions that they ask and provide resources about that topic. So we've been talking about the solar system a lot, and this week, this whole month, we are working on solar system reading, comprehension, grammar, arts and crafts only about the solar system. And at night, my husband will show, there's an app and you point it to the sky and it'll show you all the planets. Especially on Feb 27th and 28th, all the planets were supposed to line up in one side, and we saw that in the sky. So we just kept going in more depth and details about all the solar system planets, memorizing the order, which my daughter was very interested in because one of the Dr. Seuss books had a poem related to that. So this is how we are learning. We are not really following any curriculums, but I'll keep a little tab on, okay, how's their reading going? Can we improve some grammar concepts? And I also mentioned in our previous video, we are expecting our 3rd baby. And so I've asked a teacher for help, and she comes every Saturdays to tutor them for like 4 hours. And what I do with her is I'll let her know everything that we've done in the week. And either she can bring completely different materials so things stay fresh with her, or supplement the stuff that we are already teaching. So it's either complementary or analogous, and it's been going great. So I'm also loving that style of teaching. We are constantly experimenting and iterating in our household. I hope that explains the curriculum question, and let's move on to the next one. Can you please guide me about financial planning for a child and for his future educations to invest and curriculum in India, living in a remote area? Okay, so I live in the United States, and I have made a video all about financial planning for kids. So if you're in the US, you can watch that video right here. I'm not very well versed with India investing, especially for education. I did go to school and college in India, and the way my parents did it was whatever they earned, they saved most of their money. They did send us to private schools, and that was it. My dad said, the only money I have for you guys is to pay for your school fees. And I went to college in India, which was not very expensive. We were a middle-class family, so he was able to pay for my fees. But then when I went for my master's in the US, he had to take a loan out at 15% interest rate. I still remember that. So this is how we funded our education in my family. But I don't know if there are any college accounts just like the US in India. So I won't be the expert giving you advice about this. I would highly recommend you asking in a local Facebook group where people are figuring out expenses and education in India. Okay, next one is Z and Brothers. They want to know what kind of activities should the kids do. Their kids are 5 and 7 years old, and they get bored very quickly after a year and a half of homeschooling. And I don't know any activities for second grade. For this one, I would say go back to my previous answer where I answered what we do with curriculum. And this is exactly what you can do. Find games online or DIY them if you don't want to buy board games, anything like that, and keep a tab of their questions, their curiosities, because if they're getting bored, that means either the resources at home are not matching with their interests or skill levels. So keep a book of all the questions, all the conversations you're having, and within a few weeks you'll see patterns and you'll be able to figure out, okay, they've been asking me a lot about building this or constructing that. And I'll leave some STEM books that we use for creating homemade experiments and homemade projects in the description below, so you can get ideas from there. And there's so many online tutorials and blogs about certain topics that your kids might be interested in. Just bring them, put those resources on a table and keep it ready. As soon as they wake up, they'll be like, oh, this is really cool. I was really into monster trucks or something, and today we are painting that or building something out of it. I really like bridges, and today you set up a project with all the items you need for building that bridge and sit with them and build it. So once that process happens, they'll ask more questions. Keep noting them down, and those questions, if they are about some academic stuff or other things, you can start to now branch out and provide more resources about the additional topics that they are interested in. The next question comes from Priya George. The same thing. Can you provide an age-by-age guide about homeschooling and curriculum and resources? And same answer. Watch your kids, observe your kids, note down what they're asking you, give them some things that you may think they already might be into, and then branch out from there. Next question comes from Renu, and she asks, I see a lot of plus points which you share with us about homeschooling approach, but can you also please highlight some of the challenges that may be some cons, specific scenarios, say where the parents have to work or not having appropriate skills to homeschool? This is a very good question. And first, let me share about the challenges that we face. Sometimes we'll sit down and me and my husband will sit down and think about, oh man, I don't think they've done X, Y, or Z for the last 3 weeks. Because homeschooling, and especially our method of unschooling, is a little bit unstructured, I do notice sometimes going into this rabbit hole of, am I doing enough and are they learning enough? So that's definitely one of our big challenges, but we really have to just overcome and think about this as a very long-term project. Just like the stock market, you don't look at the numbers every day. You have a diversified portfolio of index funds and you leave it alone for 20, 30 years. That's exactly what you want to do with your kids. Give them a diversified option to grow different skills like swimming, tennis, surfing, gymnastics, math, English, projects, arts, so many things. They have open doors to do these things. And eventually, because of the range of material that they're working on, they will grow different skills, including business and so many things that we've been teaching them. So have confidence that because you're working with their interest and not against it, and hopefully you're teaching them important skills like empathy and being kind and helping others, they will grow up to be well-rounded individuals. All that our kids need is our intentional time and effort. It is definitely possible for both the parents to be working, the kids are in daycare or school all day long, but even in those scenarios, how can we be intentional with whatever few minutes we get with our kids? Hopefully we are not scrolling on our phones and wasting that time. This childhood is not going to come back again, and working on the relationship with them is going to be so much more valuable than any other effort in this season of life. Yes, sometimes parents might not have any skills to homeschool, which, I mean, there must be something that you can teach to your kids, some values, culture, tradition. So many things exist outside of academics. You can take help from other parents. You can take help from tutors. You can even take help from teenagers who are doing really well in their homeschool or school groups. I'll highly recommend not doing this in a vacuum. Have a community around you and take one day at a time, no comparisons with other parents, other kids, and just be intentional with your own learning and the time that you're spending with them. And I'm sure your kids will turn out great. Okay, next one is, how would you see private school education in the USA, where it is said that kids get individualized attention with strong curriculum, resources, and support, and they mention holistic nurturing environment? Have you tried that option? If not, that's fine, but how that education would compare against the approach that you take? So, there are wonderful private and even public schools in the US. The reason we chose homeschooling was because of our lifestyle. We are traveling a lot, and I think it's very efficient for me to just teach a little bit to the kids and then let their brains rest. No matter how good a school is, they still have to follow a structure. They still have to answer to their board of advisors, or if a school is only going through till middle school, they have to be a feeder school to the high schools, and then in that whole process, the kids get a little bit disadvantaged. But again, as long as the parents are intentional, they are keeping tabs on how the kids are doing, if they're mentally well, if they're healthy, and enjoying their time in school, all these children are going to turn out great, homeschooled or schooled. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. I have tried the approach of sending my 3-year-old to a private school. She went from 3 to 6. She loved it. It was a great experience for us, but I just feel like there are so many other benefits that we are getting from homeschooling. And every single school year, I ask my children if they want to go to school, and that option and those doors are open to them. It's just a little bit hard in the city that we live. The good schools are really far away, so driving them, like waking them up at 6:30 a.m. and then having them reach by 8 a.m. is just, I feel like it's not gonna suit their health and sleep needs, and the kids don't want to wake up that early anyway. So that's why it really fits well with our lifestyle right now. How do you keep your kids engaged and motivated in a homeschool environment? Refer to my previous answer about curriculum. I do what they want to do. So they are already, we already start from a engaged and motivated point. Sometimes if there is something very crucial that my kids just don't want to do, I just tell them the truth straightforward as it is. One time my kiddo told me, "Oh, I hate reading, reading's boring." And I'm like, you know what, if you want to live in this real world, you have to read. It's just not an option. We can figure out ways to make it fun. You let me know some ideas, I let you know some ideas, then we come up with a list, find our common ground, and continue. There are certain things that are going to feel hard, and we need to do them anyway. So, as nice as it sounds when they're doing everything that they're interested in, we also teach them that some work that you don't absolutely love is part of, the overall picture. So the 80-20 rule. Again, I know you must have done a lot of research and analysis before opting this approach. What would you have preferred between public school and private school, especially in good public school states like New Jersey or other eastern states, considering, say, homeschool was not an option? I would just go to every single school and tour them. I have actually toured 15 schools, even though I ended up homeschooling my kids. Like in California, I toured 10 schools, and in Hawaii, I've toured 5, and then I even toured a school in Bali. So I would go tour the schools, ask teachers every single question that has ever occurred to me, and then just figure out what schools fit your bill the best and just go from there. Do a lot of research, ask a lot of questions. If what happens if the teachers are changed? What is the difference between a charter school and a public school and a private school? Lots of things. How much flexibility do they have around grades and exams and things like that? So if I were to send my kids to school, I would just go and ask the teachers, hey, what is it possible that you just let them learn at their own pace and not worry about whether they're going to make it to the next school or whether they're going to pass these tests or anything like that? Just protect their love for learning, building, and creating. Can you do that for me as a school environment? If the answer is, most of the times it'll be a 50-50, but even then you decide if that is good enough for you. Many places they'll just be like, nope, we're stringent, they have to follow this exact process, otherwise they can't be in the school. That's a red flag, that's a deal breaker for me. So you figure out what you want, what's your aim and goal for your children, and then ask questions on those tracks. And the last question comes from Vani Jain about what activities do we do with other homeschoolers. And what we do is, a good friend of ours, she runs a homeschool group every Friday. There's themed activities. So once a week we study about a country. This week we are doing France. Another week we'll do a craft activity. Last week we did tie and dye. And then one of the Fridays we'll go for a hike together. And the fourth Friday, I don't remember, but it's like a theme thing. And then the topic of the theme changes every week. The kids enjoy it a lot. They get to see the same children and work in groups. Oh, the fourth theme is board games. So we just go, bring all of our board games together, and there's like 20-30 board games, and the kids get introduced to new games. They play with their friends. So it's really refreshing because they get to see gameplays of new games and get to play with different people other than their parents. So these are most of the activities that we do. And feel free to copy something like that. If you don't have a co-op in your area, you be the leader and build that co-op like this friend of mine did, and she's amazing. She puts in a lot of effort in these Friday meetings and will bring all of the craft materials and also the presentations. So it's really refreshing for the rest of us parents to just show up and the kids have a good time. They learn a little bit, and after the activity they swim in the stream. We go to a forest setting. We're very, very grateful and lucky to be able to live in a place where we're so close to nature. I absolutely adore this childhood that the kids are having there. Okay, I think this has become a very long video. If you're watching till the end, thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. This is really all the stuff that we do in our homeschooling environment. And if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I try to read all the comments and reply to as many as I possibly can. And if you want to see how we are teaching our kids math so that they love it and are having the best time solving all these math problems, I have a video right here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.